computer. So we should be good to go. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk to AckkStudios about their new game Y2K, and we're also going to take a look at the PAX East demo. For those of you that couldn't make it out to PAX, didn't get a chance to see it, they were nice enough to send us a copy along, and we're going to play through it tonight on stream. And then once we're done with that, once we're done talking to the guys at Ackk, we'll switch over to some community loadout and just kind of finish off the stream with a little bit of shooting each other in the face. So we should be good to go. Is there anything you guys want to preface Y2K with, or why don't you give the viewers like a little bit of a build up about what the game is about or what it's like?
Okay, well, this game is becoming more difficult for me to define every single time someone asks me that question, because a couple weeks ago I really thought I knew what we were making, but some of the ideas that we've had in the past week have sort of really kind of pushed our envelope. Not necessarily everyone's envelope, but ours, and it's definitely different from anything we've done before. The general setup, which you're not going to see entirely reflected in the demo. You know what, I'm just going to read you the setup that I wrote before.
Okay.
When a young woman disappears after entering an erratically behaving elevator, unemployed recent college graduate Alex Eggleston takes to a primitive 1990s message board dedicated to the paranormal to find answers. His quest leads to more questions, as his research points him to a mysterious van the internet has dubbed the Death Cab. This vehicular oddity roams the game's cities and countryside, leaving mysterious events and chaos in its wake. Who is driving it? And despite the death toll surrounding the vehicle, why does nobody seem to recognize it as a threat? The Mother series and Haruki Murakami provide inspiration for the quirky characters and thought-provoking script. These elements come together in a dramatic and mysterious story rife with emotional depth to bring the player on a journey. Now, I can't promise the last part, but I'm definitely going to try. But, you know, there was a couple ideas. We kind of like to make games about things that nobody else would want to make games about. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of what they call missing white woman syndrome. No. Okay, so basically it's a expression that refers to how the media sensationalizes whenever a beautiful white woman disappears. Okay. And they'll spend like weeks and weeks just talking about the fact that this poor woman tragically vanished. And if you look, I think it's something like 96% of all of the kidnappings that they report in the media are all beautiful white women. Mm-hmm. But they only are like 52% of the kidnappings that happen every year. Oh, okay. So there's a vast majority of minorities who just go completely ignored. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, we thought it'd be cool to make a game that opens up and has a chapter 1 called Missing White Women Syndrome, where a girl vanishes and nobody cares, and the main character becomes devastated by this fact. Okay. So the game, like you said in the kind of the build up there, it's Earthbound inspired. So it's a JRPG. It's all turn based. It's a pretty big departure for you guys from your last game, which was Two Brothers, which is kind of a top down Zelda, Secret of Mana style inspired RPG. So this is a little different for you guys. Yeah, it's the complete opposite. I mean, the last game was 2D and black and white for the most part. This game's 3D and full color, very colorful actually. Yeah, it was. So it was one of my favorite things that I'd seen at East this year. A lot of it from just from the art style. I think the art is a huge. It's kind of like an acid trip, to be honest. Like it, and you guys have crazy music in there as well. So it all kind of flows together really well. So should we be starting from the story sequence or the dungeon? I'm guessing story sequence because that's what sets you up in the bedroom, right? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. This was, I think, my favorite part of this demo is that you set it up with your last game. That and the fact that there is a panda that talks. All of those things are wonderful. Yeah, and he's actually a pretty important character. He's on your party later on in the game. Okay, so Alex is the dude in glasses with red hair. That he's kind of the main character of the story. Is that right? Correct. And that's his talking stuffed panda bear.
Oh, it's just a stuffed panda. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of has a sort of Calvin and Hobbes relationship with it.
Okay. I do like how many game references there are to like other classic games immediately. Like right off the bat, all the dialogue focuses around it. Like to the point that Alex is playing Two Brothers on like an original PS1. It looks like.
Yeah. It was one of those things where whenever games do take place in like modern times, they're either a few years ahead of stuff that's already happened, or they completely ignore stuff that actually existed. And it kind of felt stupid to make him like a gamer and not have him talk about real games.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so wait, what just happened? Okay. That was strange. Oh, you know what? I think I hit the stairs, that's why. Instead of actually talking to Michael.
Oh, you
Okay.
went up the stairs.
Yeah, it took me back upstairs instead of actually starting the dialogue, because I think I was pointed towards the stairs a little bit too much to have the Michael trigger register. So this demo takes about 30 minutes to complete, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. If you know what you're doing, less.
Right. So aside from Earthbound, Earthbound obviously is a little more similar to your last title, where it's top down. It's more 2D. It's an older, Super Nintendo style game. What else would you guys say you took some inspiration from on this one?
Definitely Persona, for sure.
Okay.
More Lafayette 2, Rise of the Sinistrals again, which confused a lot of people that there was influence in Two Brothers from that game, because that's a game that a lot of people liked, but not a lot of people remember.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to, in the dungeons in the final game, there's going to be more of an action sort of element. There's going to be jumping. There's going to be time-based puzzles.
Okay.
So a little bit more of sort of action RPG stuff outside of battle, and then turn-based in battle.
Yeah, and so before the stream started, we were kind of talking about how the base combat is very traditionally JRPG, but you wanted to include elements that were similar to, I think you said, Super Mario RPG, where there were time-based events inside that combat section that made it a little more interactive than just waiting for your turn. So what's that all about?
Well, it's all kind of trying to break up the sort of repetitive formula of playing a sort of turn-based battle that we've played in a bunch of other games before. I mean, because it's as a game developer, you kind of have to feel like you can. If you're not contributing something to the genre, it's why do you have the right to make it?
Okay.
And I think like Two Brothers, we did a lot of really great stuff with the story. And this time we're still gonna have a lot of awesome stuff going on with the story, but there's really gonna be a huge focus on the gameplay, and we want the battles themselves to be interesting.
Okay, makes sense. So obviously, especially like you said with your last game, Two Brothers is very story driven. It's also like your current game that you're working on, a big throwback. Do you guys do you work those stories out all together, or do you just have one kind of lead writer that directs how the game is going to play out and pursue, or how does that work? Did we lose him? Oh, yep. Okay, hold on one second, guys. We dropped our Skype call there. So or did Skype just crash on my machine for some weird reason? Yep, Skype just totally crapped out. Man, we're having all kinds of problems tonight. Do not know why Skype would have crashed. Okay, that should hopefully fix this up. It's ringing over on my other system. Let's try this one more time. Maybe my net is just having problems tonight. That's why we were dropping frames. We're going to get we're gonna get Andrew back, and then everything should be good.
Hey.
Yep. Sorry about that. I think my Skype crashed. I don't know if I'm having net problems tonight or just in general my my system is acting weird for some reason, but we should be good now.
Okay, no problem.
So before that crashed, what I was saying was, obviously all your games so far have been pretty story driven. When you are writing these stories, do you guys have kind of one main writer that just directs how the game is going to go, or do you all collaboratively work on the stories? How does that work for you guys?
Generally speaking, it's me and my brother, because Brian, who's sitting next to me, but he likes to remain quiet, just like to listen. He does the in-game art and the programming.
Okay.
Whereas, I do the music, and do some design in the game, and then the two of us collaborate on the story. So most of that is from our own depravity.
Okay. And you mentioned the music. Now, one of the things, actually my favorite thing about Two Brothers was the soundtrack. You guys sent me the soundtrack relatively early before the game came out and let me listen through it. And it's one of my favorite game soundtracks that I've ever listened to. It's also massive. Do you remember how many hours it clocks in? Is it like 3 hours or 4 hours? Maybe more than that?
4 hours and 7 minutes, I think, something like that.
So it's not something you can just kind of listen to casually while you want to pick up something. So when we were at PAX, I brought that up, and you said the goal is to make the soundtrack for this game even more ridiculous, I guess is the right word.
I don't. It's not necessarily going to be longer, but I want it to have a big impact. The soundtrack. Obviously, the last soundtrack was focused around chiptunes and the evolution of chiptunes to fully orchestrated music as you find more color. But in this game, there's going to be a bigger focus on, first off, trying to make music not repetitive. And whenever you get into a random encounter, what you're going to see is you're going to hear a different battle track. My hope is to have maybe 35 to 40 battle tracks, and you're not going to hear the same track until you've heard the other.
Okay.
Let's say 33. And then I want to have a wider variety of music. The game opens up with a piece sung by a children's choir.
Okay.
Scene. So that right away is something different than we got to do in Two Brothers.
Speaking of the battle music, now we've just kicked in one of the first battles. So I'm actually gonna turn this down just a little bit because it's super loud for some reason, even though I have the Unity engine volume cranked way down. There we go. That's a little better. So I remember playing. You guys had said you had. Did you say about 40? Anywhere from 30 to 40 different tracks that you're trying to randomize throughout the battle scenes. And these are, like you said, they're basic. They're kind of the starting point for the battle scenes, and you want to add a little more interactivity in them.
Yeah, definitely a significant more of interactivity. When you get attacked by enemies, you're gonna have the option. You're gonna have the chance to dodge it.
Okay.
Another thing that we're experimenting with is the sort of goal in every RPG. The condition to win the battle is basically just to defeat all the enemies. Mm-hmm. We're going to try and have more variety in the goals for the battle.
Okay.
So we don't want every battle to be just defeat all the enemies and the battle's over, because eventually you get to the point where you're going to always use your strongest moves, and there's not a lot of strategy. Normally towards the last part of an RPG, you have a certain set of moves that you never switch from. So we're gonna have a bunch of different conditions to win. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna pull up my list of conditions to win that I have here. So there's gonna be one condition to win where you're gonna have to protect one party member for 15 turns, so the enemies will all gang up on one party member.
Oh wow!
And if you manage to protect them for the full 15 turns or keep them alive, then you can win the battle. And this is using the game's magic system. There's a move called 50-50, and that allows you to. There's a 50-50 chance that you'll win the battle or you'll lose the battle, and you can use weapons. So we want to kind of have more variety to how you actually have to beat battles. And they'll change halfway through the battle as well. You can set a spell up so you can only defeat your party with fire magic. So if the enemies you're fighting don't have fire magic, you can win the battle easily.
Okay.
but they can do the same thing to you. So you're gonna be changing the sort of like battle paradigm, like on and off throughout the battle, even if it's with just basic enemies.
Okay, so trying to make. I'm trying to think. One of the only JRPGs I've ever played really fully all the way through is like Chrono Trigger, and basically every battle's the same. You're just kind of waiting for your biggest moves to build up, and then knock out big enemies as fast as you possibly can. So you're gonna give the players a nice mix of ways to defeat things, other than, hey, just wait for your limit break. Just wait for your limit break, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're trying to really avoid that, and see that's cool, and it works really well in those games, and we're not knocking it by trying to do something different. It's just that we're trying to contribute to the genre and do something that's like exclusive to our game.
Right, do something a little different than what's already been done.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, I know I keep coming back to Earthbound, but you guys kind of found an interesting art style that makes it look like a 3D Earthbound. It's very obviously inspired from that, but it evolves the original art style in a way that's really interesting. I like kind of the cel-shaded 3D models work really well for this type of game. What made you guys decide to go with that direction? Was it just an evolution for Earthbound, or just something you wanted to try different from what your last game was?
Well, we probably tried, maybe 10 or 12 different art styles before we settled on this one.
Okay.
So the game had the same characters, but they were modeled in a different style, and we liked this one because it sort of helped us with like rapid prototyping and being able to make the game sort of flow quicker in the actual design. Like the characters, Brian, what's the palette size?
32 by 32.
So the characters have 32 by 32 textures on them, which is insane for a game that would be running on, like, let's say the PS4 or even the Wii U. That's so tiny. And that's because the characters are using this system that we're calling the palette system, where we're shading individual polygons.
Okay.
So the idea is we wanted to make graphics that could be infinitely scaled. So like if you play the game in 4K, it's not going to look like the textures never get stretched because it's just flat shaded.
Okay, so it's you guys are basically making your game in Illustrator vectors, so it scales infinitely to any resolution.
Yes, but they are still 3D models, because of vectors,
right.
That's 2D.
Right. So it would be the game 3D equivalent of a vector image, essentially. Yeah. So it'll scale up to any resolution.
Exactly, yeah. And we have rules that we've set for ourselves. Like you can't have more than one palette loaded on a character. So like if you want to have a color that exists outside the palette,
okay,
you have to use the palette that works on the character. And that's what gives the sort of cohesive whole.
Right, and they can all actually, any character's texture can work on any other character. It makes them very different.
Oh yeah, I would imagine that would make for quite a big swap.
Most of
let me see if
yeah, if you give us a minute, we're going to try and palette swap.
Yeah, you can't really tell the new character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, we're waiting for Glabe. He's freaking out.
I might do the scale reference at all.
Okay, that's a good idea.
So the core group we have right now is Alex, Michael, and Vela. Is that a group that changes through the series of the game?
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be about 8 party members by the end of the game.
Okay.
So, one thing that's always fun for me in RPGs is meeting like the new characters that join your party, and we're going to try and avoid like the pitfall of like most modern Final Fantasy games where you see all the party members within like the first month of the game being announced.
Right.
And you kind of want to have like the surprise of like maybe for a while you're only going to see Vela, Michael, and Alex, and then when the game comes out you'll meet a bunch of new people.
Okay.
And they're not real people. They're 2D people or fake people. It's a video game, guys. Come on.
So I think we talked about this at PAX as well. Two Brothers is kind of a longer game if you do all the side quests. I don't remember exactly what it clocks in at, but is this similar length? Is it going to be something that you can you can run through in like an afternoon, or are you expecting multiple play sessions to finish an entire game of this? What's the projected length on Y2K?
Definitely take more than a couple of playthroughs, but I mean, like, Two Brothers, if you do everything, like, some people on Steam, like, they've clocked like 33 hours into Two Brothers.
Okay.
Which is insane for me. I didn't realize it was that long when we were making it, but I think in the final game, probably about 15 hours to get through the main quest.
Okay.
And depending on there's time, add side quests.
That makes sense. So if for some reason you guys couldn't get, you polished up the main story, got it to where you wanted it to be, needed to ship, would you think about doing additional content as DLC, or just whatever ships?
Well, I think if people wanted to see more from the game, then yeah, I would definitely do DLC, but only if people wanted it. I mean, like, if people were like, oh man, the storyline's so great, and they were completely happy with it. Mm-hmm. If people were saying that they wanted more from these characters, and they wanted to see more stuff happen in the world, then we probably would release some updates for the game. I mean, I don't know if it would happen as DLC or if as free patches.
Sure.
I mean, generally speaking, I'm opposed to having to buy a game in bits and pieces after you already paid money for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, stop right here. I'm going to send you a picture of the characters with different palettes loaded on them. And maybe you could pull that up.
Oh yeah, definitely. We can pull it up in a browser and just see how the palette swap works for this. I honestly can't remember. How many guys do you have working at AckkStudios now? How many are constantly in dev for this at the moment?
It's 4 main people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 4, but we have some stuff that we outsource, or that we're going to be outsourcing, so there'll probably be about 6 working on the final game.
Okay.
But unless, something changes and we expand rapidly, but I don't think that'll happen quite yet. Okay, I'm going to Skype this image to you.
Yep.
About 1 second.
Definitely the creepiest part of the soundtrack to stop on so far. Just weird laughter and static and muttering.
Yeah, that one was fun to make. I think I made that in, I don't know, probably like one sitting. I just sat down. I was like, I need creepy music, so I made that.
Sir, are you doing all the music for the game by yourself? Like, are you the only composer that's working on it? Or do you have other people kind of working on the music with you?
I have my friend, Tony Manfredonia. He works as my assistant, and he does additional tracks. He worked on...
he did stuff for Two Brothers as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, this soundtrack's going to be a little different. We're going to have some more... like, in the boss battle, you're going to hear a rock track that we wrote for it. Mm-hmm. And Tony is really great with rock music, and we collaborated on that one. So when you hear rock music in the game, that's probably when you know Tony will be in your ears.
That's where his contributions came in.
Yeah, I mean in other places too, but mainly there. Brian, what is it called?
Pallet
still
Swap.
upload? It might still be upload.
I see. I think, if I remember correctly, you told me that in the Two Brothers soundtrack, I think it's towards the end of it, you actually had some guest vocalists come in and do some vocal work for you. Is that something you're planning for this as well, or are you kind of doing all the vocals in-house?
There will most certainly be outside vocalists coming in and doing it.
Okay.
The track you're about to hear, actually, you know what? I'm going to send you a website to put up there. So, there's this really fantastic composer. His name's Nico. I'm not going to try and say his last name. I wouldn't even be able to... If I tried, it wouldn't happen. Something Greek, but he's a really talented composer and performer, and Tony and I had done the song you're about to hear in the battle, and we got him to sing on it, but he just released a CD of music, and it's stellar. I heard it, and I was like, I need to get this guy to sing on the Y2K soundtrack, and surprisingly enough, he was available.
Great.
9 times out of 10, if there's someone you want to work with, they're probably not available.
Right. Yeah, everybody has schedules going on.
Yeah, okay, I've got the image. It's coming through.
And what I will do is I will copy this link and paste it into the chat here for... This is the Nico that that is going to do some guest vocal work on the soundtrack. And my Mozilla apparently crashed, which caused the game to minimize. For some reason, Firefox was open. I don't even know why. What's up, Needle's Edge? And let me know when you shoot that through, and we'll grab the palette swapped characters so you guys can see how the color system for this works. There it is. All right, let's go to desktop, and it should be done. So this is how the palette swapping works for this. Wow, yeah, you seriously can just swap any of the colors across any character.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the best thing about it is, like, if you were to try and swap one character texture in any game but Y2K, it most likely just would just look terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we're doing this so if we go to nighttime or if we go to, like, morning, you know, we'll be able to easily just change the palette on the characters and then get a different look.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I didn't notice it until you sent this, where you can kind of palette swap the characters, how the patterns between characters kind of overlap. Like Alex and Vella's skirt carries the same kind of plaid pattern, and Michael's stripe pattern can just easily grab color palettes and swap them. That's really interesting from a game design standpoint.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you just experiment with things and you're like, hey, maybe I could actually use this in a game.
Right.
It ends up fitting.
Alright, so now we're going to go into this battle. So if you missed it earlier in the chat, or well, in the dialogue for the game rather, certain characters you have to, and I think this is how it was explained at PAX, is there are ones that you can't necessarily defeat at the level you're going to encounter them, so you use your banish spell, and that kind of kicks them out of the battle that you're currently in. But at some point during the game, you'll have to go back and fight all of the characters that you've had to banish. Is it all at once? Is that right?
Yes. So there are 2 ways to level up in Y2K. There's leveling up outside of, in story-based dungeons. And then there's this thing called the Mind Dungeon, which has your characters meditating, and then they enter this 50-floor randomly generated dungeon. And at the top, and so every time you clear a floor, you gain a full level.
Okay.
So a lot of times you'll have to go power level inside your Mind Dungeon to be able to beat, story-based dungeons. And from doing so, you learn more about the characters and there's, plot development. But
okay.
When you make it to the top floor, the way you gain that 50th level and max out your character is by beating every character you've ever banished.
Okay.
So you kind of make your own final boss there.
Oh, okay. So like the end of the game is going to end up being kind of a culmination of all the things that you've gone through already.
Yeah, it's kind of like a metaphor for like when you put off like real work you need to do, and then like later it comes back to like kick your ass the night before.
Right, it all kind of piles up and you have to suddenly scramble all at once.
Yeah, Needle's Edge put it perfectly.
The chat is basically non-existent for me. I can see it on my broadcast software, but not actually on Twitch.
He said it gives you an option to puss out or pay for it later.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
That's exactly what it says in the design document.
It's actually interesting to hear the music for this game a little more clearly, because when you play it on the floor at PAX, there's like thousands of people all over the place. It's very loud.
And actually, the soundtrack for the demo is available for free.
Oh, nice.
You can put it up at the end. It's available for free on SoundCloud.
Oh, cool, okay.
Yeah, I think it's already like 38 minutes of music just in the demo alone.
Wow.
Which is kind of absurd.
Yeah, for just a demo, I can't remember how many tracks you told me you'd had available for randomized battle in the demo, but I definitely heard ones today that I didn't hear at PAX, so that tells you how much music is already in here.
That's good. I mean, like, when, because I'm working on other elements besides just the music in the game, it kind of I get to kind of call the shots on how crazy I want to go.
Right.
strangely enough, I want to go as crazy and all out as possible.
Sure.
I mean, maybe when I'm 50, I'm not going to want to write soundtracks that are like 5 hours, but...
Yeah, but if you've got the ideas and the content for it, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like a lot of people here, I talked to their game developer who wrote his own music for his own game, and he was like, oh man, that's a lot of music. He's like, I can't imagine it all sounds good. It's like, well, I've written music long enough and I've studied it enough that I know how to consistently turn out, some quality product. Can't guarantee it'll be the most inspired thing, but like it's like saying to like a 3D modeler, oh, you have 1,000 3D models in the game, they can't all look good.
Right. Well, when that's your profession, then that's what you're paid to do, or that's what you're designing to do, is make everything look good.
Yeah, exactly.
So that ends the Y2K PAX demo. What I'm going to do is switch over to this scene real quick. And this, if you guys want to hear more of the music from the demo itself, you can check out this site right here. The demo soundtrack is free, as previously stated. And for some reason, my background disappeared again. There we go. That's better. So is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you guys want to discuss about the game, or other things you wanted to kind of highlight or point out? Anything along those lines?
I think by the summertime, people are going to start seeing a lot more concrete stuff about the game.
Okay.
And also, our other game, Two Brothers, is available on Steam, currently for PC. The Mac and Linux version are coming soon, as well as the Wii U version, and hopefully somewhere along the line, a PS Vita version.
Sweet. Do you guys have kind of a target frame for Y2K yet, or is it whenever it's done?
Hopefully sometime next year.
Sometime next year. Okay.
I mean, like with Two Brothers, we announced it September 2012. It came out late October 2013, so it was just about a little over a year.
Right.
I don't think we'll be able to do that again, especially because the game is probably going to be a little bit more detailed. But probably closer to a year and a half than 2 years, I hope, but no promises.
Okay. And I remember when we did the very first stream with you guys, we took an early look at a demo for Two Brothers, and after that had finished, you had kind of said, hey, we're working on this other game, we want to do this again. So that's what kind of led up to this. Were you working on Y2K kind of at the same time that Two Brothers was in development, or was it just like a side project that was, well, maybe this will turn into something, maybe it won't?
We were working on 2 different games, but it was maybe like 3 hours every other month that we got to put into them.
Okay.
And Y2K is kind of the game that sort of like won out. But if you remember, January 1st of this year, when we posted the first screenshots of Y2K,
right,
that was when we finally settled on an art style. So that was the first time that it actually sort of like...
And now it doesn't look anything like that either.
Yeah, look at the original screenshots of when we were like, oh, this is what the game looks like. It's completely different. But it was about 60 days ago now that we started working on the game, actually working on it. And everything, when we talked about it then, was conceptual, but there was some actual programming that we had done, but it all got thrown out.
Okay.
And then we
just kind of started over again.
Yeah, and everything in the PAX demo has already been reprogrammed. Like, Brian came back from PAX and reprogrammed the battle mode from scratch.
That's a habit of mine. But...
Yeah, but, I mean, and if you kind of think, we reprogrammed Two Brothers for the Mac and Linux and Wii U version, so I guess Brian likes to reprogram things he's made already.
Not compulsively.
Yeah, actually, is that something you guys want to talk about, how that is working out? Or what the plans are for that? I don't want to tip your hand at anything you're not ready to publicly discuss, but we talked about it kind of shortly, where Two Brothers has gotten like I believe you call it like a director's cut version that is coming out soonish.
Yes. Yes. We reprogrammed Two Brothers from the ground up. It has smarter enemy AI, much improved combat. It has some redesigned dungeons. It's got it looks prettier. We're redoing some of the character animations.
Okay.
And it's going to have some additional content. And it's going to be coming out as the Mac release and the Linux release. But everybody who purchased the game already will get it for free.
Okay, so if you've got Two Brothers now on Steam, it'll kind of push out as a Steam update to, well, if it's fully reprogrammed, it's kind of going to replace the version you currently have on Steam.
Yes, but you'll like it even more.
Cool.
I mean, basically, you know what, like with Two Brothers, because we were rushing to meet our Kickstarter goal.
Right.
You know, I mean, once we said it would be out at a certain date, the day it wasn't out, then you start getting a million emails.
Right. Why don't I have this yet?
Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare. But if if there had never been like a Kickstarter or a specific release date planned, the game probably would have been a lot tighter than it was at launch. But the director's cut is going to fix every problem people had with the game, and it might create some new problems. I mean, like, there was somebody who heard this at PAX, and they're like, I don't want you to touch that game. Please don't make a director's cut. You're going to ruin it.
Wow.
So there's already Two Brothers purists out there, and that's kind of weird for me.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to that version because, like I said at PAX, I still can't get past the first town, and I haven't bothered to send you guys my save file to fix it yet. So, what we'll do is we'll do a stream for the director's cut, and we'll play the game then. It'll be great.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Another weird thing that somebody said to me at PAX was that the game made them cry because they're going through a difficult time with their wife, and that it saved his life and made everything like better, and he was able to cope with what was going on.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but that's a pretty brutal part of that game, and it happens basically as soon as you start. I had no idea that was going to happen because what we had played is a little, I think you said it's a little more towards the middle of the game that the original demo that we played took place. So when I opened it up, it was like, oh, cool, you have this little companion, that must be new, and then things happen and it goes like horribly awry really fast. That shocked me, and I'd already played some of the game. Yeah,
and I gotta say, people who are surprised about some of the stuff in Two Brothers are gonna be even more shocked by some of the stuff that happens in Y2K.
Cool. Well, that's good.
Gonna be fun.
All right. Well, is there anything else we didn't touch on that you kind of wanted to highlight or talk about, or?
I think we're good.
Cool.
That's it.
All right, man. Well, we love taking a look at the demo. It was super nice to talk to you guys again. It's always great to talk to the guys from AckkStudios. You're super awesome. When Two Brothers Director's Cut launches, we'll take a look at that stream, and maybe we'll talk to you guys then as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, you guys too. Have a good one.
All right, bye.